Welcome to Leadership, the Secret Sauce, the podcast where we talk to extraordinary coaches and leaders to dive into the realms of leadership and coaching. We're your hosts, Dave Lipsky and Matt Dodson. So let's jump in with another guest and find out their answer to the question, what is your secret sauce? All right, and welcome. Before we dive in, a special thank you to our sponsor, Character Matters Coaching and Consulting. At Character Matters, we believe leadership isn't just about results. It's about who you are while you're achieving them. Whether you're facing career transitions, building stronger teams, or navigating personal growth, we help leaders unlock clarity, strengthen resilience, and lead with authenticity. Because when your character grows, your impact grows. Learn more at charactermatterscoaching.com. In today's episode, we're sitting down with Bob Kunkle. Dave and I have known Bob for several years now, and we're going to talk about his secret sauce of leadership and coaching. We're going to get into his story about how he became a coach. He's been doing it for a little while, a short while, and we're really curious about that. Really interested in knowing what he's learned along the way. And so we hope you stick around and listen for what Bob has to say. Dave, what do you think today? What do we got?
Well, I want to welcome Bob, and I want to say Matt has known Bob for many years. I am, as always, leveraging off of Matt's relationships. So I'm excited to learn more about you, so you have some fresh eyes. So just to start off with, Bob, we normally say, what is your energy level on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being low, 10 being high.
Did you say interview level?
Is that... Your energy.
Energy.
Probably a 9 today. It's a really good day.
9 is good. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'd give it a 9. Yeah, I mean, it's in the afternoon, for those people that are on the phone, sometimes I'm at client sites on several days, sometimes 3 days, but sometimes it's now 4 days, and so on my Friday when I'm at home, I get a little boost of energy from being back home and doing a few things. So I'm a good 9.
Just stop being good at what you're doing, and you won't have so many days out on the road.
Immediate feedback is what it is. Immediate.
I am not at a 9. I am at an 8, but I am admiring both of the 9s. So just one question, and then I'll turn it over to Matt. So Bob, when you are on a plane, train, or automobile and somebody doesn't know you and they turn to you and introduce themselves, and then they say, Bob, what do you do? How do you introduce yourself?
I help people grow. And then usually it somehow gets around coaching, executive coaching. And I usually say in what context. And what's interesting is in some of those occasions, it's been somebody that works for the same firm I do, a partner in the firm, and we don't know each other. We're 8,000 people, so it's just always a surprise. So you better be careful what you say with people on a plane.
You don't know who you're working with.
That's right.
No, that's when you work with a large organization, you never know.
No, you don't ever know. It's a beautiful thing to travel. I do love to travel. And that when we talk today, you'll probably catch up on that. But I love to meet new people. I love when I just get chances to hear their stories, which is awesome.
Well, Bob, that kind of puts us into this question. Like, tell us a little bit about your story in terms of coaching, and like, how did you get to be a coach, and how did that sort of evolve?
Yeah, so it started when I had a coach back 27 years ago. Now, a really long time ago, I was managing 2 call centers, one in Atlanta and one in West Palm Beach, Florida, and for a firm that was based in Atlanta. And they brought in a guy to do strategic planning with our executive team, which I was part of at that time. And one of the deals was that he would work with each of us individually a certain number of coaching sessions, so in tandem. So I took advantage of that, and I absolutely fell in love with what he was doing. I mean, the way that he asked questions, just what he could pull out of me by doing what he was doing as a coach, really really was inspiring to me. So I made friends with him. Uh, I went back to school to get coaching, all the information, education, all that stuff, and had a mentor. And he became my other mentor. So I had two. Um, and we actually ended up opening a small practice in Greenville, South Carolina together because he was already working in a lot of different places. So it made a lot of sense. And that's where I did everything wrong and learned what not to do as a coach. You practice a lot. But it was really just the sense of calling. That was why I moved in this direction. I've never turned back. I've moved overseas a few times, lived in China 3 times, spent a summer in Mexico, which I'll talk about a little bit. So that huge impact on me. But just this sense of calling and this in the coaching space was just so tangible and real for me in that moment. There was just nothing else I wanted to do. So I kind of put everything else to the side and said, this is who I am. And I was always that guy, even in high school, where people would sing things like, you got pastor or counselor or therapist written on your forehead. Everybody would tell me their problems. I was the guy that they called in the middle of the night to get them out of a ditch, because they're messed up or whatever. So I think I've always been kind of that guy, but I never saw myself as a coach until I really understood what coaching was and what the potential was.
Hey, Bob, we recently interviewed Richard Boyatzis, and he described coaching as, he said, well, this is God's work. And no one's ever really said that. I know Richard is a unique legend in the coaching industry, but when you just mentioned like it was your calling, um,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how that, um, how did you realize, hey, look, this is my calling? Okay, so you take some education. A lot of our listeners, they've done the 60 hours of ACC level training, and did ever in the back of your mind did you think, is this really it, or what?
I think I was so engaged, and I'll try and answer your question. The education I knew was a part of it,
Yeah.
understanding the ins and outs of it. But I saw so much overlap with me just being me, with the things that they were talking about and the ways that they were saying you need to be. It was really just, in a lot of ways, a confirmation of what I already believed about myself, that I believed that this is the kind of person I am, and this is the calling that I have in the world. This is the difference that I can make. There was just so much overlap. I saw the education part as a support, and sometimes an open door or an open window or an aha moment for sure, especially when we talked about things like confidentiality, accountability, um, some other random things too. But I just saw so much overlap just naturally, and I felt so encouraged because I felt like I didn't have to become something else.
Mm.
I could be me.
Mm.
So it was a really good moment for me.
So well, before I want to ask you about coaching in China. Really, that's one of the things I have in my mind. But before we do that, I'm really curious about, like, okay, so could you describe your secret sauce, Bob?
Yeah, so vulnerability and transparency about where all of this inside energy comes from.
Mm.
But for me, it was vulnerability because I saw when I would just put it all out there and tell the whole story and connect with the things that really drove me. When I started to tell that story more, that's where people started to listen, and that's where people would dive in really deep with their own story and the other work that they needed to do, and just get real really fast about what they're challenged with, rather than having to work around that, and play games and things like that. I didn't have to do any of that. For me, when I was just completely authentic in my real self and saying, here's what I'm struggling with, we would go deep really fast and we would unlock some stuff and things would come out of people. And I said, that is exactly what I want. If I can show up this way and be that person where I can be the whole self, other people will do it too. And that's the end game, right? We're helping people unlock all that good stuff that's in there that might be trapped. Sometimes it's by shame, sometimes it's by failure. There's just a lot of things that get people to go inside. So when they hear other people's stories and that they don't feel like they're alone anymore, they start to really get real and honest about the work that they need to do. It saves a lot of time. You get to the real thing. You don't hear the story on the surface anymore. You get right down to the good stuff. So it's vulnerability is the word. I had to put a name on it at some time in the past because I didn't know what to call that. And the heart, when I worked in a previous organization, one of the things that they used to say about me was Bob's the guy with the heart. And I was okay with that. I can live with that as who I am. But it's not easy to love when people don't want to be loved or secretly want to be loved or afraid to say it.
Yeah, wow. There is so much good there, and I also want to. I stand corrected. I'm surprised that Matt didn't correct me. I think in like 2018 we had EY at the conference board coaching thing, and that's when we met. So
Yeah.
it is good. You are a familiar face, and I feel loved in just the conversation that many years later. So here's my question. And how would a client experience that? So like that safety of what you're creating and that you care enough that they can share what they want to share. How would
Yeah.
they experience that?
Yeah. So one of the immediate ways is I'm here for one reason, and that's to care about you and to care about what matters to you. That's why I'm here. So usually that tells them right off the bat that I'm not in here for money. I'm not in here for my reputation. I'm not in it for something I can hang on the wall. I'm in it here because I care about them. And if I can do that in every conversation I have, and the deeper the conversations go, I'm always looking for intersections, especially around faith. Where we share some faith, that opens up a lot. Which this conversation we're having today will probably show you that, because that's the part where I feel like there's power in this spirit that people have. And if you can find the intersection that you personally have as a coach with the faith that they have and the deep thing that's driving them, then you can come alongside and partner with them and really help them. For me, I can't lead in coaching in any other way. My vulnerability comes through my dependencies. I depend on God. I depend on my relationship with Him. I depend on that fellowship that I feel. I depend on that safety that I feel, because out in the world today, there's less feeling of safety in the world. So I've got a place where I go back and I always feel safe. I feel accepted. I feel understood, and I feel cared for, no matter what's going on in my life, no matter what the mistakes are. And I know that I can coach a person in a deeper way when there's real faith there and you can uncover where that's coming from. And I don't know how to do it any other way, to be honest. I think I couldn't do it by a book, although I think I've got it, well, you can see, I've got a shelf full of coaching books. So I read all of these things. I've got a stack of 5 or 6 on my desk right now. And they're wonderful. But without the other part, they don't really feel like anything to me. And I'm very much a feeler, which has been interesting living in a business environment because I've always coached in a business environment. I've never been a life coach. And I'm not sure, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I've always been in a business environment. But I show up the same way everywhere because it doesn't matter. You can't take a person and put them into 2 pieces. They are a whole person. So there's the business stuff they deal with, there's professional, and there's this human in there. So I just think the vulnerability and the deep caring goes a really long way. I'll talk about it in a little bit. It's not enough. I think there are some other things that are important, but it is essential.
Hey, Bob, you talked about making mistakes in some of your first assignments. So, like, I just had wondered where, if you were to give some advice, not coaching, advice to like coaches today, what would you say the mistakes that you made early on were the most important to like address and to work on? What would you say about that?
Yeah, well, this is going to sound a little cliche, but don't give advice at the beginning. Now, you can bring some of your expertise and put on a different hat and all those things later. But in the beginning, it's not about helping people make a list or know what to do. It's really about helping them go inside. That's the need. So if you could do that really well, you'll get to the other stuff. You'll be able to share your experiences, which is more of the mentoring thing. You'll be able to give some advice based on those things, and you'll help them explore. But if you don't get to the heart first and early, then that stuff is going to. What I learned was if you just give them advice, they're going to either take it or not. I learned what the difference was between a coach and a consultant. The consultant gives you lots of great information and tells you what to do, and then you put it on a shelf and don't use it. So and I didn't want to be one of those people, but I didn't know the difference in the beginning. So that was my biggest mistake really early on, was just telling them what to do. And then I found out, wow, that doesn't work very well.
Bob, also, you remind me, like, one of the things that we have learned on the podcast is unless a coach really goes deep themselves, like they can have all those books on a shelf. They maybe even be able to parrot back what's in those books, but it still doesn't come across as coming from the heart.
Yeah.
It comes across as, hey, I've memorized a bunch of questions, or, I have, Dave has talked, before about, just trying to figure out what the, high impact questions are. If he could just figure out what that would be, then he would do that. So, I find your, sort of, emphasis on the heart really important to getting to that place where you move away from the cliches and really care about the person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just absolutely critical, because you're not dealing with the real person if you're not going to the core. You're dealing with some version of them that is protected. We're great at trying to protect ourselves. We have multiple strategies on doing that. But the work is done and the change happens at a deep level. And our job as coaches is to get to that point as quickly as possible. At least that's my point of view. Because you won't waste people's time. They'll solve the right problems. They will get to the right insights. It takes the caring and it takes that safety. And I still believe that if you're not, I'm in agreement with you, Matt, that it really is. Have you done the work on yourself? Have you gone down there where you need to go? Then once you've done that, then you can really bring it to the people that you're trying to make a difference with.
Yeah, that reminds me. One of my you met her at ICF, Helen Dan, when she first was on our podcast. That was her secret sauce, is this whole idea around self-awareness, and how that really unlocked for her this need to examine herself. She used more eloquent and a much better sounding accent than I have, but she just was, and you know what, Bob, that's what Dave and I have really found, is the coaches that we, I would say, resonate, or where we go, yes, I want that coach, is the ones that have done the most inner work.
Yeah. Well, they feel like they're understood.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's why a lot of programs are, things like 12-step and things like that are also often effective, because they are very vulnerable. People share an experience, or they share a challenge, or a deep need that they have. When a coach can actually feel that and actually speak to that and actually has language around it from a personal experience, there's nothing that you can't touch. I mean, you can touch everything, because people feel heard. they feel understood, and I think that's even more important than and accepted. I said it a few minutes ago. That's what I feel like with God, and I think that's what we're trying to do for other people is to help them feel heard, understood, and accepted right where they are, because they got a hunger for something, and we're trying to help. We're trying to join them in that, but we got to create that sense of acceptance first.
I am fascinated with your experience in China, especially moving there and coaching. And I'm wondering if you can, share a little bit about your experience and the differences in coaching here in the West versus coaching in the East.
Yeah. So the first time I went to China, it was really all around mission stuff. So I was there 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, and we were doing all kinds of activity in mainland China and in Hong Kong. And then I came back home. The second time I went, I honestly did not know what that was going to be like. I was there somewhat for coaching, but really it was more about business and more about just whatever showed up. The third time was very intentional. It had a coaching component, but it also had a lot of other stuff we were doing. We were building a community center in Guangzhou, China, which is in southern China, up 2 hours north of Hong Kong. 6-acre property. We built a 3-story community center, apartments, a lot of social programs, and this was all targeted to expats that were people that were working in mainland China that were not part of a well-supported network like a P&G, where they have a compound, beautiful houses and all of that stuff. Most people don't go to China and live like that. Most of them are doing other things, and they live in small apartments. They live wherever they can. They're teaching, so they're living on the campus. They're not being paid a ton, so they struggle deeply. A friend of mine actually lived there. He started living in China when he was in 1980 or 1979. And he had lived through a lot, seeing families kind of fall apart. And they come on assignment to come to China and they fall apart. And he was tired after so many years of seeing that happen. So he had this idea. See, he was very successful business-wise. He was kind of like the Sears and Roebuck of China. So very successful, obviously made enough money. So he funded this opportunity for us to build this community center for all of those people that weren't supported. And part of that work, I was the executive director of that. I helped build that as far as the organization part of it. Part of what I did was I was working in coaching and counseling. So that was one of the things that I did there on the site. So coaching, then I learned a ton about coaching in at least China. I can't speak for the rest of Asia. But the having a conversation with someone about deep issues is pretty tough. Often, I found, because there's a lot of third person conversation going on, because the directness is not so real. So for me, I had to find ways to have a conversation that could be direct but not feel that way. Because they weren't willing to have a direct conversation, but they would have a conversation that kind of went over here first and maybe even touched on another person, and then it would come back to them. So there's a relationship going on, but you're going through another. It was really complicated for me because I was used to being, let's just have the conversation, being raised in the home that I was in. So that was a big difference for me, and I still look for ways to get better at that, because some of the people that I work with are from Asia, and I'm coaching with, but I'm always sensitive to the whole third person thing, because it seems to always be present. China was a different place the last time I was there too. It's changed a lot. Hong Kong used to be considered the safe place and the beautiful place, and it's not always that way now. And I was there for the handover in 1997, and it was tangible. You could feel the change already coming by that time. So the environment started to change, and then the weather, not the weather, but the smog and everything started to get worse, and it just became worse. but we used to go to Hong Kong from mainland China to relax and to be able to take a day off, because it was so beautiful. And so it just felt like the oppression was gone. But now it's part of China and it's kind of all there. At least for somebody like me that's lived there before and actually felt what that day to day felt like, what the difference was between Hong Kong and mainland China. Um, so I think I did a lot of coaching in China, not as a coach, to be honest, because as I said, I've always been the way that I am. This is the person that I grew up being. So the conversations were always more like that. Well, I would ask them, what are you thinking about? What are you excited about? What are your problems or what's challenging you right now? Where are you being refined? What do you need? What are you afraid of? What are you celebrating? You just talk about things that matter to people and let them tell you. Let them just bring themselves to you. I think that's the essence and the beauty of what we do as coaches, is we just ask the questions that allow a person to completely open up and flourish as a human with all their complexities, all the things that they're proud of and the things that they're ashamed of. And I think it's a gift that we give to people.
Bob, in your career, you have worked for several companies doing coaching. How do you know, for some of our listeners, how do you know when's the time to move to another company? Is it where you were asked, or have there already been any times you're like, I think I'm ready?
I've been
Like,
asked every time to come and do
yeah,
something. So that was China was
okay,
that way. Mexico was that way back in 1995. I was invited or asked to come. So I've never been anything but that. And I think that's a gift. I get that it's a special gift that I've received
yeah,
to be treated that way. But that's been my experience.
yeah. We've had another guest in the past that was part of an internal coaching organization, and then at some point in time, they just shut it down, right? And so, of course, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's
there's always that risk.
mhm, yeah,
Yeah,
right, yeah. So
The gift of freedom, right?
yes, yeah, it is the gift of free.
I love that.
Yeah,
What a
yeah,
rephrase.
that's right. We believe you're going to land on your feet somewhere, and we're going to give you that opportunity. Um, hey, Bob,
Yeah.
what's a bold belief or an idea about coaching that you have that not everyone agrees with?
So I thought about this because I did have to. I struggled with this as far as a belief because I wasn't really sure it was going to fly, But for me, it's a really belief, and we talked about it a fair amount already. But I believe that leadership is deeply grounded in love and caring. That's what leadership is. If that's not true for you, then you're not acting like a leader because leaders lead people. So I believe it's deeply grounded in love and courage, because to be able to honor the former part of that statement, you need to be able to have courage to deal with the potential aftermath of that. Because it takes courage because there's a risk. Love is risky, and in a business environment, some people aren't going to understand that leadership is about love. Some people won't even accept that language. They'll accept maybe caring, but not necessarily love. And especially if what you need to do for a person is actually going to hurt your business
Hmm.
or hurt the business in some way, or a business imperative. It takes a lot of courage to lead with a heart first. Our old CEO, Matt Snow, used to say that. He said, heart first. And he's retired now. But I so resonated so much with me, because at the time when I first started to develop that belief and that understanding from my own perspective, it was a bold statement. I got a lot of eyebrows popping up and people that were like, well, I need to hear more about that, because I've never been kind of a fluffy person. I live in a business context, so we talk about business things and P&Ls and just the practice units and all of that stuff. Um, but sometimes I felt like they were taking me that way, that this guy's a little fluffy. until they had their first challenge, and then I helped them, and they said, "Well, he's not fluffy." So but sometimes you just have to prove that love is the answer, or the caring is the answer, and you have to be courageous first.
I was just going to say, Bob, there is two other guys, Bill and Bob, Anderson and Adams, from the leadership circle that would resoundingly say this was the first time I'd ever heard that leadership is love, and that leadership is about love and loving people. And that was in Mastering Leadership, and then later on the second book, Scaling Leadership, where they really talk about that.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that I knew I was pursuing the right thing when after reading that. It shook me so much, because the idea of really caring, there is great risk in truly being caring.
Yeah.
I'm going to say some things that may be hard, or I may help you when you're down. But either way, it's love. I need to be loving, not enough.
Yeah.
I want to build on. In addition to, love, if you were designing the ideal coach for yourself, what qualities would they have to help best help you?
Yeah. So to help me, they would really need to have a deep spiritual faith. For me, that's a faith in Jesus Christ. That faith, if you're going to work with me, if that's not present, then you're not for me. Because I speak that way, I think that way, my filter is that, my grounding is that. So for someone to help me that doesn't really doesn't have a spiritual side to them that you can tangibly see in the way that they live, regardless of whether it's Christianity, if that spiritual side of them is not present, for me, that doesn't help me. I've had a therapist before, and she was not a Christian, and it didn't help me, because I needed some work, but she kept talking from this other language that didn't really resonate for me, and she wasn't getting to my heart, because that's where my heart is deeply grounded in my understanding of God. So really hard to help me without kind of understanding what that feels like, what that's like. And I'm not saying it has to be that way for everybody, but for me, that's it. The other thing that's true about a coach that would help me is be a truth teller. I don't need you to gloss over anything. I don't need you to make me feel better. I need you to tell me the truth. And I need you to show me the facts. Because I'm a feeler, so I'm going to feel all of that stuff. So I need somebody else that actually understands me, can relate to me, and that actually can tell me the truth and just show me what's true, what the facts are. So that would be the other thing that has to be present in a coach that could help me.
Beyond books, maybe even some unconventional resources, what would you recommend to other people beyond what's in your back shelf? Unless you're like, hey, you've got to read this. What would you recommend to some of our listeners?
Oh, yeah, I love books, but they are not the whole answer. That's for sure. You got to experience it. I mean, you got to be a coach. You need to be coached. You need to deal with your own stuff. If you're going to be a leader, you got to know what's inside. If you're going to get to a place where you can help anybody else, I think that you've got to unlock some stuff for yourself. There's just no way around it. If you're going to be good and if you're really going to be impactful, I feel like I'm not answering the question at this point, but so maybe you could ask it again. But I feel like you got to experience some of this stuff.
So maybe when someone asks you about coaching, like what would you say they read or look at or listen to?
Yeah, well, the no-brainer is go to the ICF website and start reading and start understanding. I believe that that's a pretty good beginning. I do think that reading the Man's Search for Meaning is a really great start. because you deal with the human condition there in that book. I think there's a ton of great books. So it depends on what you're looking for. If it's just to understand more about coaching, or if it's to understand about leadership, go to the icons. The the history makers back from before coaching, Marshall Goldsmith. I really believe in being inspired by other people that have shown that there's a thing called coaching and it looks a certain way. So I would really get inspired by some of those people that have been here a long time, especially the ones that you can see have actually lived out the things that they talk about. So whether it's podcasts or whether it's a book, or I would start there, because you can see the journey that they took, the honest ones, the ones that are willing to kind of show you that that's the journey. I would learn from them.
Mm. Yeah. Yes. Dave, what's your reflection about what Bob shared?
I am the only other. I am an ENFP, so I am a feeler. The only other feeler in the universe that has survived organizations for the number of years we've been in it. That's not true. But it's not easy. I like, as Bob talks about it, what I'm reminded of is the importance of coaches still being strong and being able to bring that love and the feeling and the care. But when people are in need and you can be there to support them, then it's no longer soft, it's effective. So I so appreciate you reminding us of that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, well, Bob, I would add this other quality to, maybe it's a secret sauce, but it's kind of a strength and vulnerability too, from your own self-examination. I think that's what I took away. Like, you want to be a coach, you got to do the hard work.
Yeah.
And that's what allows you to ask the tough questions and get after it quickly. You
Yep.
did. I think that's sometimes, this conversation isn't just a conversation. A coaching conversation is not just meant to be nice. It's really meant to be effective and to deliver a result,
Yeah.
an outcome for the business.
Yeah.
And and yeah.
I
So
totally
thank
agree.
you.
Yeah. I will add one more thing, and this is not going to be a surprise, but I think that when I think about the beyond books resources, these are going to sound like two that don't really fit somehow in the answer to the question. But for me, confession and vulnerable conversations with God are absolutely essential if you want to learn, if you want to understand more about resources. Those are amazing resources. Now, that may look different for you. It may look like confessing to another person. It may be a very deep, vulnerable, open, risky conversation with someone that you know cares about you. Sometimes somebody that doesn't. And I think that's where I have grown a lot, is when I was able to share some things that I was really dealing with somebody that I wasn't really sure whether they were safe. I started to see different things happen sometimes, not all the time. But when I was vulnerable enough with somebody that wasn't safe, something happened in me. It's almost like something strong started to build within me, because there was something happening with my courage. The more courage I showed to actually put myself out there when I knew it was probably not safe, the more I grew. Because that adversity is tough. I mean, it does something with you when you feel like you're really at risk. But for me personally, those are resources that you can't get any other way.
Hmm.
So I'm not a Catholic, but I believe in confession wholeheartedly. It is a thing, and I have a couple best friends, and they know me. I mean, they
Hmm.
really know me. They know where I was. They know where I am currently. They know how to help me. We talk about the stuff. I don't hide stuff.
Hmm.
They know the real me with all my mess.
Yeah. It's almost like what you're describing is like next level self-examination. It's like you've taken self-examination and you've been willing to share that same thing with somebody else, to ask for comment on those things. And that's a scary place, Bob. That's I think most of our listeners would say that's pretty scary to do.
Well, maybe it's
Yeah.
my age, maybe it's just stuff I've been through, but I believe it's rich. That's the best word I could probably stick on it. It's a rich place. I get it that it is scary. I'm still scared.
Yeah.
To do it today, especially with people of power. I had to really get over that in the early stages of being a coach. I went through the whole journey of who am I to be coaching you? First CEO I sat down with years ago, I had that running in my head. Who are you to be sitting with this guy that's running this organization that's so big? I had to work out my stuff with that. Okay, why do I have so much tension about this right now? So I had to go back and do some work on that because I wanted to and I needed to help this guy. I needed to join with him where he was. But so all this stuff was getting in my way. It was noise. So I had to do some work to be able to serve him. So if I had some advice to give for people that are working on being coaches and being better at being coaches, is when you're confronted with tension that's created in a relationship where you're trying to serve somebody as a coach, go deal with that stuff right now. Don't let it sit. Don't say, well, maybe that's not that important. Yes, it is. If you really care and you want to help a person, if you're dealing with some of your own stuff that's connected to that relationship, you being effective in that relationship, to use your effective word, then go deal with it. And then come back to the relationship and actually give them something that they need. You've got to have a lot of courage.
Bob, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if some of our listeners want to find you?
Yeah, I'm out on LinkedIn, fairly active out there. So you can go out to LinkedIn and find Bob Kunkle. That's my name. And I work for Forbes Mazars. We're a global firm that helps people all over the firm with professional services. But I run the executive coaching practice within Forbes Mazars. So we've got coaches inside that work full-time to work with our leaders to continue to develop and to prosper and to flourish as leaders.
Dave?
I'm going to close with our sponsor statement. Do you ever feel like you're working hard but not making the difference that you want to? Get in touch with Character Matters Coaching and Consulting. We help leaders get from stuck to unstoppable. Contact Matt. And Bob, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciated it. I'm glad that we could do it.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. And until next time. Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast, please share it with another coach or leader. Make sure you go to the show notes to get all the resources from today's episode.